Namaste.
Namaste.
Well, is it a Yahoo? But let me urge you to use the process, to use these principles that work and have been working in your life. And from my point of view, I can see it with humor that whatever it is you're now assuming to be the way it is for you, I wonder why it's that way. Would you think that your assumption would have anything to do with it? A mind filled with concepts, opinions, beliefs is going to manifest those concepts, those opinions, and those beliefs. It may look to you as though events outside of yourself are doing it. But events outside of yourself do not have any effect upon you unless you assume them to have an effect upon you and draw conclusions with regard to them. Where did the definition of the event? See? Where did the classification of the event? Where did the naming of the event as being this or that, where did it come from? To whom is it occurring? Can it even be there apart from the eye that is seeing it? How would you know that it is there apart from the eye that is assuming it to be there the way it appears to be? And it doesn't matter what it is. You may have a mind that is just filled with all kinds of reasons why it ought to be this way or that way. Your doctor told you so. Your accountant told you so. Your attorney told you so. Your mother-in-law told you so. But without you there as being the one that is conscious of that, acknowledging that in the way you are acknowledging it to be, tell me, how could it have any effect upon you without you being there, giving it the effect that it is having upon you by your assumption of it being the way you're assuming it to be or you're seeing it to be? In other words, the way you're thinking it to be. You see, our thought is what creates our reality. Our imagining is what creates our reality. Not from the past. Our imagining, our assumptions, our felt and held assumptions is what creates the manifestation of our apparent reality. That's my realization. That's not my belief. That's not my theory. That's not my opinion. That is my realization. Through the grace of the self, through the grace of these processes, through the grace of Bhagavan Ramana and all of my conscious teachers, and my use of these principles to bring my consciousness back into the source of itself and to abide in and as the source of consciousness itself, it isn't just opened like a scroll to be revealed. This is simply the way it is, and I'm only here to share it with you. If you want to argue with me about it, okay, I'm not going to argue with you about it. If you have legitimate questions and doubts, I will be with you in your questions and your doubts, but I am not here to argue with you. I already know the way it works. I have no questions. I have no doubts. If you want to live in the limitation of your conditioned mind, and you're the one that has accepted it to be that way, then you're the one that has to suffer the consequences of that. But you can revise, you can transform your life. You can revise your life and transform your life if you choose to. Are you with me?
Yes.
The question is, are you ready? Do you choose to? Or would you rather be right and suffer? Do we have the... Neville was my teacher. He was the first teacher that I had who I could be assured or knew that I myself was aware that was coming from consciousness. My history is not really important, because you see, history is usually of the body, and the body's not real anyway. It's just a concept, just a thought. But Neville was the one that introduced me to the truth that consciousness is all there is. I intellectually knew that. I had read that. I had heard that. I had heard many lessons, call them sermons, whatever. I used to be a unity minister. Some of you may be familiar with unity. It's a very positive religious philosophy. I have great respect for unity, for what it does, what it's about, what it's for. My realization, my experience with unity is that it can make you want it. It makes you want the truth. It makes you want to realize it, if you've ever studied it or been involved in it at all. It just can't quite give it to you. It can bring you right up close to it. You know, you might get a whiff, possibly a taste, but it just doesn't quite give it to you. And the reason is because it doesn't come from enlightenment. It comes from the intellectual belief about. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Yes. This is called the epilogue, sort of a summary of the Power of Awareness training, what you've had this weekend. And I present it to you. It also is from Neville, who was, as I said, was the first teacher I had who I knew to be conscious, because it just emanated. He was coming from what he talked about, not just philosophizing, not just talking about. It wasn't just beliefs. When he spoke with one of the authority of one who knows. He had made it into wine. One of his analogies is turning the water into wine. One of the first miracles in the Bible performed by Jesus was the turning of the water into wine, which very basically Neville's insight and realization of that miracle had to do with not some historical fact that supposedly or may have or may not have, who knows, took place back in the days of Jesus, but it has to do with the psychological meaning of the Bible. Turning the water into wine is when you know something intellectually, that's water. When you've made it your experience, what?
That's wine.
That's wine. Are you getting it?
Yes.
And I learned that from Neville. You see, what I gained from Neville was a man that was the knowledge and the enlightenment that he shared of a man who spent over 40 years, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, studying the Holy Bible. Over 40 years, 7 to 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. I never knew anyone prior to or since who knew the Bible like Neville. With him, the Bible was alive, and it wasn't a historical document. It was a psychological document that every character, every event, and every episode in the Bible represented you, me, all of us. It had to do with our own experience. And he studied the Bible with the Strong's exhaustive concordance, in which he knew which contained every word in the Bible in Hebrew, in the Old Testament, and Greek in the New Testament. And so he studied it in the original Hebrew and the original Greek, not from the Nicene Council of Constantinople, in which they came forth as to what was going to be accepted in the Bible as intellectual dogma. Well, it had nothing to do with dogma. It had nothing to do with doctrine. It had to do with realization. Am I making myself clear? Yes. And I saw him on TV one time with something like 5 fundamental Bible quoting, banging, fundamental college students, professors and ministers, preachers and so forth, and a Catholic. And he was sitting there without a Bible in his possession, because he had the Bible here and here. He had the Bible in his being. And they would quote Bible, they'd read it, and he'd say, they would quote it, and he'd say, when they would quote it, according to the way they would quote it, he says, that's King James you're quoting. He said, now Revised Standard says it this way. Moffat's says it this way. Phillips says it this way. You get the point? He ate them up. And spit them out. He really knew the Bible. And again, to him, it had nothing to do with history. It had to do with consciousness. It had to do with being what you want to be, doing what you want to do, and having what you want to have in this world and transcending this world. Does that have any appeal to anyone? Well, I recommend that you study Neville. I've studied him for years. Okay, and this is from Neville. It's called The 3 Propositions. This is from his book, The Magic of Imagination, chapter 21. I believe that 1, your state of consciousness determines the conditions and circumstances of your life, and 2, that you can select any state you desire to be identified with, and 3, you can be what you want to be. Just that simple. It's all in your hands. It's entirely up to you. There is not anyone or anything outside of you that is holding you back from whatever it is that you want to have, do, or be. Nothing or no one. It's entirely up to you. Now the question is, do you want it? See, do you want it enough to let go of your bullshit concepts? Do we get it? Yes. So who's it up to?
Me.
Who's the source and cause of your experience?
I am.
Yes. Now, what do you choose?
Happiness.
Freedom.
Completion. Fulfillment. Completion.
It's up to you. Whatever it is that you choose, it's yours. But once you choose it, then you assume that in consciousness, and you don't go back there again to the old state of consciousness. You do not go back there again, Dave. You don't listen to the bullshit limited thoughts of your mind. You assume whatever it is that you wanted was already a manifesting fact in your life. You stay with that feeling. You let the scene of that, your envision of that, your imagination of that rise up into your consciousness, or you form it into your consciousness intentionally, whichever one works for you. And there's where you go. Your own happy end of the movie. Did we go over that?
Yes.
You got it?
Yes.
And it's just that simple, folks. This is how AHAM is here. You with it?
Yes.
It's not here because of money. We didn't have any money. We only had consciousness. Are you with it?
Yes.
We still don't have any money. We use all of our money. It flows. We don't accumulate any. Are you with it?
Yes.
Has it been worthwhile so far?
Yes.